Dr. Diamond, perhaps I could start briefly with you. I only have 6 minutes, so I'm looking for a quick response. You set the table about the evolution of anti-Semitism over the ages, and it strikes me that you have concluded, sir, that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism today. Would you agree with that, just to be precise?
Yes. Zionism, the definition of Zionism is kind of a Jewish liberation movement for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. So if you are anti-Zionist, then for me, you are singling out the Jewish people of all other peoples to the right, singling them out as not having the right to a national homeland. In this case, perhaps one of the only indigenous peoples, it's ironic, to return to their homeland. There's always been a community of Jews always in Israel, and so yes.
Thank you, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
But just in the interest of time, the state of Israel is probably the most remarkable indigenous revival on planet Earth over the last 75 years. We saw recently, Dr. Diamond, that international courts have been weaponized against Jewish people and the state of Israel. Would you say, in your experience, that the ICJ shenanigans had a material impact in how Jewish life was impacted on Canadian campuses?
Absolutely. It's simply another kind of legitimization of this insidious form of anti-Semitism that I would call anti-Zionism. So what it does is it lends credibility to this phenomena that, for me, again, has unleashed another form of anti-Semitism that has morphed many, many times over the ages.
Over the 90s, we saw the introduction of critical theory thinking, in which pluralism was used as a normative guise for moral relativism, for equivalencies. And in that same context was the birth of the International Criminal Court, which today we see being weaponized yet once again through its equivalencies against the democratic, law-abiding state of Israel, capable of implementing its own decisions and jurisprudence over war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression, versus the terrorist entity that is Hamas, which is not interested in any rule of law but the obliteration of an entire state, being backed by another state, the state of Iran. Do you fear for how the ICC is presently being weaponized against Canadian Jews and across the Canadian Academy?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll let you give my perspective from an academic point of view. The encampment that is presently active in the University of Waterloo, my administration, I'll just read it to you if I can, just briefly, addressing the protesters' calls. This is a public communication. They are dialoguing with protesters about their demands for divestment from companies, complete severance from any academic or cultural institutional ties with Israeli institutions. Now, this is quite incredible to me. Freedom of expression, they're fine. I'm fine with that. But freedom of expression doesn't mean that I need to listen to your expression. To divest from Israeli academic institutions and citing what you just kind of mentioned, things like the ICJ or the ICC as supporting these demands would lead to to suppression of academic freedom, particularly targeting Jewish academics.
Thank you for that.
Particularly targeting Jewish academic institutions.
Thank you very much for saying that, because I think now is a time in which we should be responding, as some of your colleagues have said, with rededication to the freedom of critical thinking rather than the indoctrination of critical theory. But perhaps I could close with this question. We're watching in the United States a bipartisan consensus emerging for sanctioning the ICC for how it is weaponizing terrorist propaganda against free-thinking people, and particularly our treasured Jewish communities across the Western world. Do you think Canada should consider something similar?
Absolutely. I'll just mention one particular facet of this seeking arrest warrants. You have Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor, pinning up mugshots of Yahya Sinwar, the leader of the atrocities, alongside Netanyahu. Now, why was that done? I mean, they could have, let's say, sought arrest warrants for Sinwar a number of months ago. The evidence was there for everybody to see. All the news media had seen this. But yet, of course, this was carefully orchestrated to put a democratic regime that is fighting for its survival alongside a leader of a terrorist group that committed rapes, atrocities unimaginable